Welcome to Around the House Northwest, presented by PGE and Oregon Kind of Energy.
Welcome into another edition of Around the House Northwest here on Fox 12 Plus. I'm Eric G. Coming up on today's show, I'll give you a tip on matching drywall texture and talk Wi-Fi sensing with Tony Nicolaitis. We'll also stop by Best Manufacturers, who produce the last American-made kitchen whisks, and they're right here in town. But first, we always kick off the show with our Perform Like a Pro segment. There's nothing quite like authentic wood-fired pizza. I built an outdoor pizza oven so I could make some myself. Let's go take a look.
Now it's time for Perform Like a Pro.
All right, guys, today we have got a fun project we're going to be tackling. We're going to be building a wood-fired outdoor pizza oven. And this is going to be quite the project. I'm looking forward to taking this one on. So the first thing we're going to do is, as you can see, I built a really nice foundation for this. I did this about a month ago. I wanted this to cure up because this thing's heavy, so we got to build quite the base for it. Step one, we're going to build some steel studs here so we have a nice base for the oven, because this thing needs to be up at countertop height, and it's about 1,800 pounds, so we got to make sure it holds that. So let's cut some steel. All right, guys, let's cut this track. Now, there's two different types of metal here. We have the track and then the studs. The track doesn't have any of the holes in it, so we are good to go right here. There's 72 inches. Let's make this cut. Now, I put a metal blade in my chop saw right here that cuts all this steel, which makes it really easy. I don't have to worry about it. So now we're going to take this Sharpie, and I actually use these Sharpie Pros because I can mark on wet metal with these things, so they work really good, especially this time of year. So I'm going to go down here. I know I'm 2 inches off of my bolt, so I'm going to go in here 2 inches in, mark where I'm going to drill, because I got to drill for these bolt holes here. All right, now that we've got that drilled, I'm going to take the nuts off of these so I can set it down on top of there, and we'll bolt it right down to the concrete. All right, that's nice and tight right there. Next step, we're going to cut some studs here that are 40 inches tall, because that's going to be the finished height of this. All right, guys, so I'm going to do these 12 inches on center, which means every foot I've got a stud going in here. I could go 16, but I'm just trying to compensate for the added weight, so I want this as durable as possible. And I've got some more cross pieces in here as well, so I'm going to mark those out so then we can just start putting studs in. This stuff goes in real easy. All right, guys, I got the base built up. So really, once I got those steel studs together, I sheathed the outside here with that 7/16 OSB that's made by Zip System. It's weatherproof, so it'll sheet the water off if anything does get down into it. And then up here, I built 2 layers of 3/4 inch subfloor material, and then I glued those together. And then I actually have 2 sheets of 1/2 inch HardieBacker up here, so I had another fireproof layer. So this gives me all the structure to hold this weight. And now we can start building an oven. All right, our next step here is to find our center line. This is about 54 inches, right on the money right there. So basically we're gonna mark this at 27, and I'm gonna put a line right down the middle. All right, this center line is gonna basically dictate the build, because this is where the middle of this base is, so I need to center the oven on top of that. So from here on off, we're gonna be building off of this. So I'm gonna mark this down here, and I'm actually gonna use a Sharpie on this because I want this to stay here and not move around like a chalk line would, where that kind of dusts off and goes away. I need this one to stick around for the project. All right, guys, so right now I'm just cutting out the template here, and what this is going to do, this is gonna be our template to cut out. So this is really easy. So what I'm gonna do is finish cutting this out, and then take some thumbtacks and push it in here. And then I'm gonna mask up, get out my saw, and we'll cut out the template here. And this is the calcium silicate board that goes down first, and it directs the heat back up into the oven, so that way the pizza stays hot. 13 inches off is where I want it, so that is where that is going to lie. And now we can start building the pizza oven. So our next thing here on top of this is I'm gonna wrap this in foil, because this stuff here is not great for putting mortar on. So the foil is just gonna keep that from soaking up and making a weak bond. So we're gonna wrap this with foil real quick, just stuff out of the kitchen, then we'll start mixing up some mud. All right, guys, so now we're gonna start going up with this project, and our first piece to set in here is the precast entry arch where the opening into this oven is. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in here and mark back a line 8 inches so we can align that up correctly, as well as 1.25 inches from the sides. And then I'm gonna put a little bit more of that mortar here, and we'll set that arch in, and then we can start chasing the dump. All right guys, one little trick is you always have to make sure that the brick and the cast parts are wet all the time, because that's part of the curing process. So you need to keep it wet. Now I'm gonna set this panel up here and lock it into this joint. All right guys, I'm gonna use my floor jack and I'm gonna lift this up so it seals the bottom of the dome right here. And then we're gonna pour in this refractory cement, which is basically the same thing these are made out of. That way it's all locked in and this can't go anywhere. All right guys, our next step here is gonna be on the front half of the oven. So we're gonna lay our bricks in here. And then this is gonna be our template because we're gonna arch the bricks over the top of this. So the first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna put these little spacers under here and get this like this, so that way we can get that centered up and we're good to go. These are our little marks that we're trying to line up, so we got to just put a little bit of mortar, goes a long ways with this. So the first thing next we're going to do here is I'm going to get this wet just to make sure that this doesn't soak the moisture out of the mud. And I've been soaking the bricks over here for a while. You have to soak them for at least 10 minutes. It sounds like just percolating. There's so much air in those things. So you want to make sure and get them really wet so this looks really good. So, all right, our next step is to fit this chimney cap on, and we're going to dry fit it first because I've got a couple spacers to put on each side just to make sure this sets, because the weight of this will push the mortar around. So first thing I'm going to do is get those spacers in and then we'll dry fit it, see how it fits. I can always move these around since they're still setting up. All right guys, our next step here is we're going to be working on the back side of this now. We're going to be wrapping this with this ceramic blanket. We're going to be putting 2 layers, which is 2 inches thick. And I'm going to make some cuts in here so we can fit around the dome correctly and get up on top. That way, that's the great insulation that keeps the heat inside and makes it efficient. Now a couple things, gloves, long sleeves. This stuff is so itchy. They give you some nice gloves, but they won't fit over my jacket. And then you really need to have a respirator or a good mask. And so I'm gonna put this on because you don't want this in your lungs. All right guys, this is the last major step here. We're gonna take this chicken wire and wrap it all around the outside of the dome on this. Now we're building a protective cap, so by the time we put the concrete perlite solution on the top of this, that way it's nice and strong, and just in case something bounces off it, it's gonna be protected. All right guys, so I mixed up our perlite mixture here, which is a special batch of mortar. It's a super lightweight stuff. And it's a funky little mix because it's got almost like styrofoam pieces in it to keep it lightweight. So we're gonna put this over the top, and that way we have that hard shell on the outside. All right, we got this float in the kit here, and we're just gonna start to smooth this out here just to see kind of how it lays out. All right guys, I got a lot more to do with this. Can't wait to show you when this thing's done.